Okay, this is the second part of Bullshit Breakdown, which is laps 11 to 20 of the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Now, since doing the first part, I've produced Formula One is scripted, and I've just made a video going through the Saudi Arabian brake test of 2021. Now, the reason that I've done those two videos in between this breakdown of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix lap by lap is because I need to compare some of what you're going to hear in this video with what was then put to us that was in those events. So in Abu Dhabi 2021, we had Sergio Perez blocking off Lewis Hamilton, specifically slowing him down, right? And how the commentators described that. In doing that video, I was looking at that footage and I was actually seeing the dynamics of it unfold, and it just made me keep rewinding and rewinding and rewinding to try and get to the first part where I was thinking, well, how much advantage over Perez did Hamilton have? Was there the need for that? And I already knew that there wasn't. I already knew that Hamilton could have gone longer because he was on medium tyres. But what I hadn't clocked at the time, and I've not re-watched this time and time again, like the closing stages of Abu Dhabi, was the fact that the commentary were calling it before it happened. They were calling Hamilton pitting immediately after Verstappen, even when he didn't have to because he's on a different compound of tyre, and they were calling the notion of Perez backing Hamilton up before it even happened as well, before Hamilton even pitted. So that's the F1 is scripted. If you've not seen that, it's a long ass video, but if you actually listen to what is being said at Abu Dhabi 2021 between laps 10 and 24, you'll understand the script. I've just made a video on the Saudi brake test of 2021, and again how they describe Max's driving, because you're going to hear something in this video for 2025 about how they describe Lewis Hamilton's driving. Now, that was originally blocked on copyright. I've had to use the YouTube trimming tool to trim out the blocked content, which means I don't know what it's going to end up like. I don't know whether that video is going to have missing sections, making it not make sense. But I'm just going to publish it anyway, and I'll have a review of it later on and see if I need to redo it. But that might be worth a watch just to see what is being said about Hamilton and Verstappen and how they validate the Red Bull team in that video. Not pressed upload yet, but I will be doing that shortly after I've recorded this one. So, on to this video. If we go to... They're replaying at the moment, okay? So I'm going to hit play and we're going to listen to the commentary. Again, you won't be able to see the visuals because of the copyright, but this is essentially lap 11 through to 20 of the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So here we go.
Yeah. Some people will think, Martin, I'll try and play devil's advocate to a certain extent.
Crofty, I'll try and play devil's advocate to a certain extent. Now, before you get to hear what he actually says, anybody that says, I'll try and play devil's advocate is a C-nut. And the reason being, if you are devil's advocate, you are advocating, you are speaking on behalf of the devil. Now, in our culture, the devil is the worst that can be. The devil, the notion of the devil represents the worst of mankind, evil. Yeah? And you're speaking on behalf of evil. That makes you, as my dyslexic friends would fully understand, a C-nut. So don't be like Crofty, everybody. Anyway, Crofty, seeking to advocate for the devil, says,
where was Max going to go when Piastri wasn't ahead there?
Well, where was Max going to go if Piastri wasn't ahead there? Well, this is the notion of that's why you can't determine it at the apex of a corner. Yeah, because if now we get to the apex and we've got to freeze frame to work out who's ahead, well, where's the car going to go now? There's nowhere for him to go, is there? If he wasn't ahead, where's he going to go? See, you know these rules of engagement that I've been saying about for a long, long time now? When I've done the breakdowns of the 2024 Kota Grand Prix, where Karun Chandok is presented to the world to talk you through that incident, to validate Max Verstappen, to tell you that nowhere does it say that the car on the inside has to remain on track, says Karun, right? Because they're always now, since trying to validate Verstappen rules, have come along with this notion of who wins the race to the apex. He was ahead at the apex. He stayed within the white lines. That's the bullshit that they're trying to give everybody, and it's nothing to do with that. Okay? It's nothing to do with, oh, you stayed within the white lines, so you're okay. No, absolutely not. It's not about who wins the race to the apex. It's about where you are at the braking zone to that corner. And this can easily be represented. They can easily overlay graphics onto a motor racing circuit so that when we're viewing it, when they're doing a replay to analyse things and to display to the public who's entitled to what around this corner, right? When they're evaluating an incident and replaying it back and demonstrating to people who's at fault for an incident, easy to do. Here's the braking zone for the corner. Here's the relative locations of the cars. If the car that's attacking is attacking up the inside, taking the inside line to the corner, they have to be at least halfway alongside the car that they're attacking in order to have the right to racing room around that corner. If they're not at least halfway alongside and they're attempting an overtake, they have to yield. They have to recognise in that braking zone that they've not made it along at least halfway alongside the car that they're trying to attack, and they need to back out. Right? That is what they have to do. If they've made it at least halfway alongside, they're entitled to track room. So the car that they're attacking has to afford them the space so that they can make it around the corner. But likewise, the car that is attacking on the inside has to leave the car that they're seeking to overtake space on exit of that corner on the outside of them. That's how it works. If the overtaking car is trying to make an overtake around the outside, they have to be at least alongside the car that they're seeking to overtake. By going around the outside, you've got further to travel, hence you need to be side by side with them. That's, again, the way it works. In that instance, the car that is being overtaken, the car that's on the inside on this occasion, has to afford the car on the outside track room on exit of that corner. Okay? In this situation, Piastri was the car that was behind. At the braking zone to that corner, Piastri was already ahead. So therefore, he'd already won the right to the corner. He was on the inside. He was already ahead. Being already ahead, it meant that the car on the outside, Max Verstappen, wasn't alongside. So hadn't earned the right to be left track room on the outside on exit of that corner. That's why Verstappen had to tuck in behind. That's the way it works. But Crofty, advocating for the C-nut, right, asks the question, playing devil's advocate, where can Verstappen go if Piastri wasn't ahead at that apex? Well, that's why you don't determine it at the apex, dickhead. But you see how your narrative falls apart. You see, mine, which isn't a narrative, mine's just an explanation of the rules. It doesn't fall apart, does it? Because you can apply that to every corner, every track of every Grand Prix of the season, right? And it makes sense and it works. Yours, you can pick fault with, can't you? Because yours is a bullshit explanation, Crofty. Yours is a contrivance designed to validate Max Verstappen. And you see, when you develop rules and regulations, when you develop conventions, they are developed so that they apply universally to all circumstances that you're likely to encounter. And they're effective. And therefore you can't play devil's advocate and pose such questions. Well, if he hadn't have won the race to the apex, where would he have gone? Yes, that's a grey area. That's a loophole. Nobody knows. Is there a problem with the... Yes, there is a problem when you try and explain it that way, because it doesn't fucking work, does it, dickhead? But when you explain it the way I've told you, the way that it's existed for years, because that's the way it fucking well is, yeah, you don't pick holes in that because it fucking works, doesn't it? But what we've got now is a Max Verstappen fluffing media constantly seeking to validate Max Verstappen and Red Bull. And that is why people are being misinformed, miseducated. And that is a problem. That's an abuse of people. When you misinform people, when you miseducate people, you are abusing them. You are fuckers for doing so. That's what you are. Anyway, we're going to listen to the audio from laps 11 through to 20. Let's go.
Yeah. But Max came off the brake pedal to carry speed in, to claim his right to go across the runoff area.
To claim his right to go across the runoff area. Look at the way Brundle will always validate Max Verstappen. Yeah, Max came off the brake to keep his footing, to claim his right across the runoff area. No, you've not got a right. Okay, that's an emergency measure. You've not got a right to the runoff area. What you should have done was drop in behind. You should have conceded position. You should have realised that the guy had overtaken you. You were now on the outside, approaching a corner, behind. You were not entitled to be left track room on the outside on the exit of that turn. You knew it was a chicane. You knew it immediately goes into the next chicane. You know that as going around that first part of it, you automatically drift to the apex of the second part of it. So unless you've reached the required point to afford you track room, you're going to be run out of room. Therefore, you yield. You back off.
He's so clever. He's got so much control over...
He's so clever. This is Martin Brundle, the expert, saying that Max is so clever, he's got so much control. He's got so much control that he can't keep it on the track. He's got so much control that what he does is illegal. He's got so much control that what he does is cheating. Oh, but this is a good thing. He's got so much control. Max Verstappen fluffing media.
Max came off the brake pedal to carry speed in, to claim his right to go across the runoff area. He's so clever. He's got so much control over the car.
That is a man sucking Max Verstappen's dick. That is this lad. That's this lad. He's got so much control.
Max came off the brake pedal to carry speed in, to claim his right to go across the runoff area. He's so clever. He's got so much control over the car. He games the system.
He games the system. No, that's called cheating. Okay? Does any other driver game the system? No, they don't, do they? No, because they respect the rules and regulations of the sport. Okay? And if they commit an infringement like that, they suffer a penalty. It's only Supermax that doesn't give a fuck. It's only Supermax that just says, fuck you all, I'm going to do what I want to do. And it's only Supermax that doesn't receive an appropriate penalty for it. It's funny dynamic that, isn't it? Funny dynamic that. But cocksucking Brundle will validate it. So that's all good. That's all good.
But he lost out on that particular throw of the dice.
And back in DRS threat is Oscar Pierre.
That was Max. He's got so much control, but that much control that he has to throw a dice to make it a chance, yeah? If you're under control, then it's not a game of chance, is it? So that's contradictory, isn't it, Martin? He's got so much control, but he lost out on that gamble. Control's not a gamble, is it, Martin? No, no. Cock.
Piastri, but only just. Bernie Collins, to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in quickly on the track limits. I think it's because the Red Bull system will count all of the track limits regardless of that exemption for lap 1.
I think that it's Red Bull's system will count it. No, the reason why it's a track limit strike is because you had an option there. Okay, you weren't crowded off the track. You had an option. You were in a position on the track whereby you should have yielded, you should have braked, you should have slotted in behind Oscar Piastri. You didn't. You elected to carry more speed than you were capable of holding on that track, capable of keeping your car on the track by going for it as opposed to yielding, and you drove yourself off track. That is a track limit strike. That's not being crowded off. That does count.
Turn 1, and maybe just instinctively Max has been warned about it, even though it may not count towards a further penalty should he exceed it more than 3 times. And then very quickly, Crofty, lots of discussion of cooling breaks out there. Drivers.
So what Bernie's doing there is validating or providing validation for, they may not count this one if ultimately the FIA don't count it, even though they should. But you never know, because are they going to penalise Max? Are they not? And if they don't, then we'll provide the excuse for it first, because that's what we're paid to do in the media. We're paid to suck Max Verstappen's cock. Yeah, so we'll tell everybody, this will be the reason he's not got a penalty here. Join the crew, Bernie, join the crew. Everybody does whatever they do for money, okay? Some people do some dirty deeds for money.
Really struggling in the traffic to keep these cars, engines, brakes all at the right temperature.
Doesn't surprise me at all. 29 degrees tonight.
Just think about your gap there, car ahead with any overheating on the front.
Guys, do you not think there's a car right behind me as well? Are we not thinking about that?
Yeah, James Irwin.
So again, what happened there is that's the Williams on the Williams race engineer on the radio to Alex Albon, and it's a valid point from Alex, isn't it? We get these interjected messages, and I wonder how much of them is narrative, where it's just bullshit spoken on the radio just for entertainment, just to keep everybody hooked. What's happening here? What jeopardy? Is this car going to overheat? What's going to happen? Is that going to cause a safety car? Keep watching. Something might happen here. Something might happen here. Because that's the kind of interjection. The McLaren ones are fucking so contrived, you wouldn't know. You know, they just sound, but they sound really wooden as well. The McLaren communications to Lando are absolutely fucking scripted. But again, this one here is just, it's just a bit weird because, again, look at what Alex has said in return, which is entirely right. You're trying to get me to manage my engine temperature, but I'm trying to race here. I'm trying to race fast enough to not lose a position to the car that's behind me. So what's more important? Me easing off to keep the temperature right, or keeping ahead of this car here? How about you produce me a car where I don't have to nurse it around the track when I'm trying to race to prevent it from overheating? How about you do that, yeah? Unbelievable.
The race engineer for Alex Albon, just pointing out that you're overheating a bit, but Alex Albon rightly pointing out, I've got Isaac Hadjar right behind me. If I back off that much, he is right in the danger zone for me. What Piastri needs to do, meanwhile, as we ride on board with him, he just occasionally, Martin, dips under that 1 second advantage, but then he loses a little bit more time through the first sector. And it's whether he can gain, 3 or 4 tenths maybe.
Look, we're on lap 11. Max Verstappen broke the rules of the sport, cheated on lap 1, and is still benefiting from having cheated. What kind of sport's that? That's just disgusting, isn't it? They allow cheats to prosper.
On the second half of the track, that's his key to getting consistent DRS here.
If it's all synced up to the sound, Piastri lifted off quite early there. I don't think he wants to get too close to that Red Bull at the moment until he can get rid of some fuel load. And be interesting to see if he offsets down the straight. He's far enough behind to just offset a little bit, just to keep everything cool. And now he's got some DRS as well.
Let's be realistic here. Virtually, well, pretty much every driver in that grid, in that field of competitors, understands what they're up against when they're up against Max Verstappen. They know that that prick will rather try and take you out than be overtaken. Right? That's the way it is. But what Piastri is aware of is that Max has got a 5-second penalty. So therefore, why risk being taken out by Max Verstappen by performing an overtake on track when you can actually get by him when he pits? So what we're seeing here is Piastri stay within range, but are we seeing Piastri's true level of performance? You see, had Verstappen given that place back initially, which he should have had to do, would Verstappen then have come under attack from George Russell? We don't know, do we? Are we seeing Piastri's true level? I don't think we are. I think Piastri could have gone faster, but I don't think Piastri's even attempting to make an overtake because he doesn't need to. As long as he stays within touching distance, if it is a notion of dirty air, then, it doesn't matter. All he can do is just go, well, I don't need to get too close, just close enough so that when he pits and then when Oscar makes his pit stop, it's enough for Piastri to take the lead. But again, this is how the dynamics of applying a penalty that way affect the race. We're not actually seeing authentic racing. We're just seeing a guy remain within touching distance just to say, well, I'll do this at the pit stop. It's actually a much safer way of doing it rather than go up against a tool that would rather try and take me out.
So, Piastri's managing. He's got a faster car. Max has got the penalty. And Piastri knows that he just has to wait until the pit stop phase and he'll have the clear air, providing they have clean pit stops.
Meanwhile, as you can see, his teammate Lando Norris is now gaining on Lewis Hamilton, and he's got DRS too, and on the last lap was 4/10 faster than the Ferrari of the 7-time world champion.
How's the pace? How's the tyres?
Yeah, tyres are hot, so yeah, clean air would be incredible.
Not sure where you find any clear air at the moment. Maybe once he gets past Lewis Hamilton, because it's looking a little bit inevitable that Lando Norris is going to do that. There is a bigger gap to Kimi Antonelli that Lando can drive through and get that precious clean air on this humid night on the shores of
the precious clean air. Now, if you look at the gaps here, Norris is 0.7 of a second behind Hamilton. Hamilton, what is he? He's 1.7 seconds behind Antonelli. That's precious clean air, is it? That's your precious clean air, that 1.7. Once you've cleared Hamilton, you've got 1.7 seconds of precious clean air. Where's the clean air and where's the dirty air? Where does the clean air stop and the dirty air start? And utter bullshit, isn't it?
Red Sea.
Yeah, bearing in mind his tyres should go that good bit further as well. So Antonelli's good pace, mid-34s, not bad at all, hanging on in there, keeping Leclerc in view. And again then, Norris is another move he now needs to make quite quickly, isn't it? And then he can get a bit of a breather. There he is. And there is Piastri, ever closer to the Red Bull, but he's really got to watch. But the McLaren does seem very good on cooling. Here we go.
This is Lando Norris on Lewis Hamilton into that final corner. Norris.
So this is where Lewis Hamilton schools Lando Norris for a few laps. Okay, understands where the DRS detection zone is, line here, sorry. And, well, we'll listen to it. He gets overtaken by Norris initially and then gets him back down the next straight with the aid of DRS, which, if you're challenging full position, well, that's what you seek to try and do. You're in a race with people. Just because Lando Norris is in a car that seems to be performing better, and again, we've got this notion of which is the fastest car. It would appear that the McLaren is a fast car this year. Whether it's the very fastest, who knows? Based on what we know about the drivers, well, Lando Norris wasn't setting the world alight at any other stage of his career. So now he's at the front of the grid, setting pole position times and winning races. You'd think that that is heavily car dependent, wouldn't you? So it's highly likely that the McLaren car is a super quick car. How much better, or is it any better than the Red Bull? Again, we don't really know, do we? We can't actually directly compare the actual cars because we don't get the different drivers driving the different cars to see which driver can lap which car the fastest, so therefore determine actually this must be the fastest car. We only get one specific driver driving one specific car, so we only know what that combination actually is. So, yeah, it would appear the McLaren's in the faster car. Okay? It would appear that. It would appear that the Red Bull is still a fast car. Up there with the McLaren's. Maybe not quite as fast, but difficult to say. It would appear that the Mercedes is a pretty fast car, but maybe a little bit backwards of McLaren and probably a bit back from Red Bull. It would appear that Ferrari's a little bit of a step back from that. But again, we don't know for sure. But that's what it would appear.
Looks like he's got the job done and will get DRS to help him, I would imagine, because he would have been within a second.
Lewis has got the DRS.
Lewis has got the DRS now. So Lewis overtakes him again. So Lando maybe made the move a bit too early there, went through the next detection zone ahead of the Ferrari, and that's why he didn't get the DRS.
Yeah, he moved too early. And Lewis knows that, of course. Remember 2021 with him and Max literally coming to blows out there.
Remember 2021 with him and Max. Right? So this is why I made the 2021 video. You need to go and watch that if you've not reviewed it recently. If you've not reviewed the brake test of 2021 recently, watch the video that I've put out explaining that. Listen to what Brundle's saying about that, because this is where he's comparing it with that.
Not to cross that line first. Yes, Lewis knows that, of course. Remember 2021 with him and Max literally coming to blows out there, trying not to cross that line first.
So Max brake tests Lewis at 2021, and the way Brundle dresses it up is, oh, them two came to blows trying to not cross that DRS line first. Nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it, but that's the narrative. That's what the stewards then presented back in Saudi Arabia 2021. Absolutely nothing. You think that Lewis Hamilton was avoiding going by Hamilton to not cross the DRS line first? Utter bollocks. Go and watch the video. You'll see. Anyway, we'll carry on. But again, this is the way the lying bastard Brundle will present this. Constantly validating Red Bull and Verstappen and constantly painting the wrong picture of Lewis Hamilton.
Yes, the brake test of 2021 as we watch one.
Yes, the brake test. Coming to blows, not wanting to cross the DRS line first. As if both drivers had the intention of that. Good cop, bad cop.
McLaren chasing after a Ferrari and the other McLaren chasing after a Red Bull. Lando Norris briefly got ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton used all his experience there to nick that place right back again. While all this is going on, under pressure, Ollie Behrman has been overtaken by Liam Lawson. Lawson moves up into 12th place and showing a little bit more pace ahead of the Haas. Jack Doohan is gaining on Nico Hulkenberg. He's within DRS, as is Esteban Ocon on Jack Doohan too in the minor places currently.
Surprising amount of tyre marbles beside the racing line I just saw a few corners back, suggesting to me well, there's a reasonable amount of tyre wear going on out there.
Which is good in terms of degradation and helping us get a bit more excitement and overtaking as Lando Norris later on the brakes than Lewis Hamilton almost went into the back.
Yeah, well, Lewis is trying for the DRS zone again, isn't he? But and he's got it.
Yeah,
so
he has.
Lewis very nearly got rear-ended there.
Lando needs to try and break the toe, and he's not doing that, and he's also not keeping Lewis Hamilton at bay for the second successive lap.
So what actually happened there? And let's see if we can see it. We'll play it at a quarter speed and try and go through it. What actually happened is Lewis left the door open. Okay, he opened out, leaving the inside line to the corner for Lando Norris. Lando didn't really want to take it, but Lewis clearly gave him the inside line. That's what you do. If you're opening the door for somebody, that's what you'll do. If they choose not to go through it, then they choose not to go through it. That's not brake testing somebody. Okay? You've left them clear position to go through. You've not impeded them. Okay? You've opened the door for them. That is what opening the door is. So we'll see if we can play this. I need to just knock the sound off. So let's have a watch of this through. On board with Lando. Look how wide Hamilton's staying. See? He's not defending. That's opening the door. You see, when you've got a car that's behind you, which is what Lewis Hamilton obviously had, and you're approaching the corner, then they often will try and attack you up the corner. So if you are slightly slower, okay, and this is only slightly slower, then it gives them the opportunity of doing so. If you move in front of them, you're essentially travelling at a slower speed, blocking them off. Hamilton didn't do that. He maintained his line out wide. Okay? Opening the door for the attack on the inside, which is what he did. Norris didn't particularly want to attack, but he realised he'd come in across a car that's travelling slower than he was anticipating, but the inside line's open. Therefore, the door's been open for him. Up you go. That is what Hamilton's just done to him. That's racing craft. So if we just go back, you can see Norris in 8th gear. I wish I've not got onboards with this, unfortunately. So I haven't got the Hamilton on board. Whether it will show us soon. Yeah, so what he realised is his rate of closure to Hamilton was quite significant. Hamilton clearly backed out. Okay, Hamilton clearly slowed earlier than he otherwise would, but he held his line outside. Okay, opening the door for the inside line, and therefore Norris could drive into it. Just go through that again. 7th gear for Norris, 8th gear, closing. So slipstream, I don't know whether he's got DRS at this moment in time. Might well have. So this is why he's going to be closing anyway. So Hamilton's gone to the right-hand side of the track. Loads of space there. And there you go. No problem with that. That's just motor racing. Open the door up. So, let's go back to the right speed. And we'll listen to what Brundle describes about it shortly. Put the sound back on.
Almost went into the back.
Yeah, well, Lewis is trying for the DRS zone again, isn't he? But and he's got it.
Yeah, he has.
Lewis very nearly got rear-ended there.
Lando needs to try and break the toe, and he's not doing that, and he's also not keeping Lewis Hamilton at bay for the second successive lap. Norris gets ahead of the Ferrari, and the Ferrari takes the place right back again.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's racecraft. That's what Lewis Hamilton has had to do to get back ahead of Norris.
A little bit naughty there of Lewis, I have.
A little bit naughty there of Lewis. So Brundle describes what Lewis has just done as a little bit naughty. Never once at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix of 2021 does he describe Max Verstappen's brake test as a little bit naughty. Never once, where Max is in the middle of the track, decelerates from 8th gear down to 4th gear, and then rams the brakes on. That's all in that video. Doesn't describe that as being a bit naughty. Doesn't move himself to one side of the track, making it clearly obvious that there is space down one side of the track for the other car to go by, does he? No, he remains in the middle of the track and then weaves at the last moment. Doesn't describe that as being a bit naughty. When they're describing Perez holding up Hamilton at Abu Dhabi 2021, they describe that as great. That's incredible. But here, that's a bit naughty of Lewis. So go back and watch the video about Abu Dhabi. You'll hear Crofty describe Perez's driving. You'll hear the script. They're predicting that Perez is going to play a role in holding up Hamilton back on lap 10. When Perez is on soft tyres, Hamilton is on mediums. Hamilton should be able to stay out till lap 20, lap 25. The soft compound running drivers should be changing tyres somewhere between lap 15 and 20. There's no way that Perez should come into play. But Sky Sports are predicting it on lap 10. That he's going to be holding them up. Although Lewis should soon clear him on those fresh tyres. What's going on there? And they then described Perez's driving as being incredible. Checo's a legend. Yeah, he's an animal. They don't describe that as what Brundle's just described.
Doing that, and he's also not keeping Lewis Hamilton at bay for the second successive lap. Norris gets ahead of the Ferrari, and the Ferrari takes the place right back again.
Yeah, a little bit naughty there of Lewis. A
little bit naughty there of Lewis. And hopefully we'll get a replay and we'll go through what he's done from an aerial point of view.
I have to say,
but there's Brundle vilifying Lewis Hamilton. He's just a bastard of a human being.
Well, we saw such a fight, didn't we? So brutal between him and Max down there at that line.
And he's going back to 2021 Saudi. So brutal, the fight over that line for the DRS. Absolute gaslighting about the situation.
And it gives you the DRS then. The detection point is in just before the braking zone.
So this is the replay. So what we'll do, we'll have a look at it ourselves first, and then we'll replay and listen to what they've got to say about it. So quarter speed, we'll knock the sound off. Let's have a look. So you got Norris approaching, catching him. What does Hamilton do? Stays out wide. Doors open. Norris didn't really want to put the attacking move in, but realised, well, he's actually left the door open because he's stayed wide and slowed down. So it's opened everything up for the inside. So you've got two options there, Lando. You either slow yourself fully down behind him, okay, or you pass him. But what Hamilton's not done, he's not brake test you, right? And what he's not done is block you, okay? He's opened the door. What's naughty about that? It's like, yeah, if you want to take me, mate, there you go. It's all yours. It's all yours. But you want to take me, then I'm going to get DRS. You got a choice. You can either slow down and slot in behind me, or you can overtake me. There's your choice. What's naughty about that, Martin? It's not a brake test. It's not doing something that's erratic. Okay? Clearly not erratic, because why is it not erratic? Because the other driver was able to respond adequately, safely enough to deal with that situation. Okay? That's not erratic. He's staying well wide of the track. He's left the whole of the track available for Lando Norris to go into. Unlike Max Verstappen, who was in the middle of the track and then weaving erratically, doing something that was totally unpredictable. Hamilton hasn't brake tested him. So what Norris tries to do is just try and keep Hamilton wide to slow Hamilton as much as he can. Again, it's gamesmanship, this bit is. Because he's not trying to hit the apex, is he? Oh, it's just like Silverstone 2021 all over again, isn't it? Oh, had Lewis have hit that apex, then it would have all been okay. But because he didn't hit the apex, that meant he tried to murder Max Verstappen. Is Lando trying to murder Lewis Hamilton here? No, because that's all bullshit. That's a bullshit narrative, everybody. But the strap-on fanboy gets incited by it. Now, what Hamilton's done, stayed out wide, schooled Norris by going, yep, through you go. I'll be the one that then's eligible for DRS because I'll be the trail car that crosses that line, activating DRS for Hamilton. So let's just go back and we'll listen to what the fluffers have to say. So back to normal speed, volume back up, and let's have a listen.
Lando was trying to wait, but then Lewis wouldn't let him wait, and he had to duck out behind him.
He needs to be...
Yeah, that's all that happened. What's naughty about that, Martin? So you want to vilify Lewis by describing his conduct as naughty, and yet you'll champion when Perez purposefully holds another driver up to benefit somebody else. Fucking blocking somebody for somebody else. That's fucking filthy. You'll champion Max Verstappen, paint that picture of him brake testing somebody as, oh, two cars trying to fight each other over not getting to that line first when it was just a brake test. Filthy driving. But you'll describe Lewis Hamilton as doing something that's naughty. People like Brundle, there's just fucking... Well, there's a special place for people like them.
A little bit earlier on the brakes next time around, Lando Norris. It didn't look quite as bad off board as it looked on board. And this is what it looked like when Lewis was...
So, this is the Lewis then performing the overtake. It didn't look as bad off board as it does on board. No, because it wasn't that bad.
Powering down the straight with that 16 kilometres an hour of extra pace advantage that the DRS brings when you get to the end of the straight.
The trouble they've got now is they're 13 seconds off the lead. That's 2/3 of a pit stop that they're off the lead, Norris and Hamilton. While they're squabbling, it's costing them time.
So, remember, I spoke about Hamilton being 1.7 seconds behind Antonelli. Because that's that was this difference between the dirty air and the clean air, and Norris was desperate for that 1.7 seconds of clean air. Well, what's the gap now? Well, Hamilton is 3.5 seconds behind Antonelli now. So, this dueling, this fight between the two is costing them. It's now cost about 1.7, 1.8 seconds. Okay? Wow. There you go. Is that purposefully slowing down by 3.5, 4 seconds, which is what we saw Perez do from turn 9 through to the end of the lap, where he slowed Hamilton. No, it's not. It's not that dramatic level of trying to impede and slow somebody down. No, this is racing somebody. Okay, this is challenging somebody for position by racing them, not purposefully trying to block them. This is racing them for position. That's the difference. But when you race them, you do impact their race. If you just open the door and wave them through, off you go, okay, you don't impact their race. Well, you do, but you benefit them. You just give them a free ride. When you challenge them for position, then what you're doing, you're making them work for it. You're making them work hard. Now, this appears to have cost Lando Norris 1.8 seconds so far. And the longer it goes on, that could extend by costing Lando Norris a few more seconds. How that then pans out as you go through rounds of pit stops can mean that he comes back out on track at a location where he has to pass more back markers, for example, pitting him, and so that he comes out into more traffic, costing him more race time. This can then impact the overall result. And at the end of this race, Hamilton's teammate, Charles Leclerc, finished on the podium, ahead of Norris, in fourth. Now, was it the actions of Hamilton here, fighting for this position, that enabled his teammate to secure third position, a podium in that race? Well, it's highly probable. I don't know what the time differences are, but it's highly probable, isn't it? But this is valid. This is what it's about. You should be challenging each and every person in that race around you, not just opening the door and waving them through. You shouldn't be going, oh, you're not my race, through you go. But that's what Hamilton's done. He's validly fought for position with Norris. He's used his racecraft to fight for position. He's kept that challenge going for several laps, and in doing so, that has benefited his teammate. What he's not done, though, is purposefully hold up Norris to his own detriment, which is what Perez did. Perez slowed himself down by 3.5 seconds on a lap to purposefully block Hamilton. Hamilton's not slowed himself down by 3.5 seconds to purposefully block Norris. No, he hasn't done that. No, what he's done is he's driven tactically to try to get himself ahead of Norris, to use the track layout and the DRS on the track to keep himself ahead and keep that challenge going, give himself the chance. And in doing so, that's benefited his team and his teammate. Surely that's what this should be about. That's what it should be about. It's not blocking off somebody intentionally for the benefit of your teammate. It's using your racecraft to race for yourself, but in doing so, the impact you're having is benefiting your team, because in fighting that other person that you're challenging, you are actually impacting their race time. But that's a valid impact of their race time. Who should be entitled to just a free ride? Oh, well, yeah, just let this guy by. Yeah, just let him go. That's fine. Just carry on. I think you're a faster car, so you just go by me. I'll roll out the red carpet. You just go. There you go. Yeah, you normally set pole position, so yeah, I'm not going to bother racing you. Shall we just do that, shall we? or shall we race each other? But it's racing each other. It's not purposefully blocking each other. And there's a difference. But the strap-on fanboy doesn't understand that. And the reason they don't understand that is because they've been educated about this sport by Red Bull, Giampiero, Lambiase. They've been educated by cunts like that. That's what it's about. And that's the problem.
And extending his lead a little bit, Max Verstappen now hovering about 1.2 seconds out in front.
Okay, mate, strat 8, play the game.
Yeah, so he's got to follow Lewis into the last corner, because I think the detection line is just on the exit, isn't it?
Strat 8, play the game. Okay, so it takes a bit of working out, doesn't it? Yeah, actually, you don't want to overtake him before then. So if he's going to slow down, I'll slow down too. All right? But then I'll be able to overtake him.
This time he has absolutely followed Lewis Hamilton. And now Strat 8, turn the engine up a little bit. If it was a speaker, you'd turn it up to 11.
But if Hamilton slowed down, he's not blocked him because he's left the track open. What Perez was doing was not leaving the track open. He was slowing down, but slowing down and holding the inside line all the time. So Hamilton would have had to have gone onto an outside line, and the moment he would have done, Perez would have just speeded up because he's going through a twisty section of the track. So he goes, well, yeah, if you want to try and go around the outside, I'll just speed up so that you just won't be able to go around the outside. That's blocking. So we're now up to Antonelli's at 10.9 and Hamilton's 14.4, so 3.5 seconds still. Okay.
Is what he's doing now with that DRS wheel to wheel with Lewis Hamilton down the straight. He's probably using electrical energy himself to try and keep on pace with the McLaren, but the DRS helps Lando Norris through. Third time of asking, he's got the job done.
Kind of couple of laps wasted there, but as you say.
So there you go. 3.358, a couple of laps wasted. That's a couple of laps of Hamilton fighting for position and was able to keep him behind for a couple of laps by using his racing knowledge, his racing craft. And it did a job. He might have been had Lando Norris have kept with the same approach and not adapted his approach, who's to say that Hamilton wouldn't have been able to retake him with DRS once again. But Norris has then learned, he's seen what was going on and has decided, okay, the way I need to do this is be second to the DRS detection zone and then do it. And then we see his car pull away. So there you go. It's cost probably about 1.8 seconds because he's 3.5 seconds behind Antonelli. Previously, he was Hamilton was 1.7 seconds. So it's about, it's not even that now, is it? But at the time, at 3.5 seconds, it's about 1.8 seconds has been lost with them two cars fighting over a couple of laps. It's not 3.5, 4 seconds in one lap, is it?
Got the job done, but he's now 14.5 seconds off the lead.
Key thing for Lando Norris is that he's now got about 3.5 seconds of clear air to try and help cool the tyres and the car down before he gets anywhere near Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. So Norris started 10th, he's now up to 6th. Verstappen started on pole, he continues to lead, and he has a 5-second penalty to serve at his pit stop, which if he did that, and all things being equal on the stoppage time, he would come out ahead of George Russell as it stands now. And I mentioned that Liam Lawson had got past Ollie Behrman.
So he's got a penalty that's not going to affect him. He's been allowed to run for long enough where he's built up a big enough gap over third position where he can get out ahead of third. So he's allowed to cheat, he's allowed to cut the corner, he's allowed to leapfrog from where he was down in second place because he'd been overtaken. He was able to jump himself illegally into the lead, gain enough time out the front over third place to then mean that the penalty he's given then only returns into the position that's behind the guy that he cheated to overtake on that one. That's not a proper penalty. It's not a proper penalty. If you cheat, there should be an adequate consequence to deter you from cheating again.
Lawson is making another overtake here, and this time on Fernando Alonso, so he moves himself up behind his teammate Isaac Hadjar and into 11th place. Karun, down to you.
Yeah, Fernando Alonso not happy there, Crofty. A few laps ago he said, I don't know how I lost the DRS to Hadjar. I'm dead now. And sure enough, dropping like a stone. No straight line speed. Just quick line of Verstappen. He is now cleared that 5 seconds to George Russell. So assuming the pit stops are the same, Red Bull and Mercedes, he will clear Russell despite the penalty. Extraordinary pace from Verstappen and Piastri up front. Let's see what Lando can now do.
Extraordinary pace from Verstappen up front. Able to do it in a tractor, isn't it? Extraordinary.
Free air.
Verstappen, the only driver lapping in the 133s.
In the free air. Keeping those tyres cool that Lando's desperate for. Keeping the engine cool that Lando's desperate for. Oh, Max has got all that. Max has got all that benefit, hasn't he? By cheating. Doesn't have to worry about holding back a bit to keep the tyres cooler or to keep the engine cooler. No, cheat. Get yourself all the benefit of that.
Currently, Piastri a couple of tenths behind him on the last lap.
And Norris immediately takes 3/4 of a second out of Kimi Antonelli's advantage. He'll be with him in 3 or 4 laps.
It's every possibility that Lando Norris could lead this race at some stage when drivers come into the pits, and then a late safety car would really help his evening. On board with Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, just sliding around out here, mate. Front and rears.
Yeah, understood. We believe he's overheating. Try to gain the back.
Still struggling to adapt to that Ferrari car. How does he gain it back if the rears are overheating?
I don't really understand the line, I can't turn the rears, to be honest. But yeah, so basically, as long as you haven't completely changed the property of the surface of the compound, you've just got to not punish the car, punish the rear tyres coming out of the slow corners. Bernie, what can you tell us?
Yes.
Well, there is a different school of thought on the tyres, but I'll get to that at some point. And they're things that we can only speculate on at the moment. It appears the Ferrari at the moment doesn't appear to be on the same level as the McLarens, the Red Bull, and the Mercedes. So, we could say, no, that there will be people that would argue the Ferrari's equally as fast, if not faster, and it's just the drivers who aren't good enough. We don't know. Can't argue against that. All we can go on is what we do know about the drivers, and that when they are driving a car that's competitive, and it might be the fastest car, when the Mercedes was the fastest car, Lewis Hamilton was able to win in it. So you put the guy in the fastest car, he can win. Now, he's not anywhere near doing that at the moment. So what does that mean? Does that mean he's lost his ability, or does it mean that he's not in the fastest car? We don't know, do we? We don't know yet. It's too early to say. Don't write him off yet, though. So, I would, at this stage, be erring to say, I think the Ferrari's not the fastest car. That's what it would appear to show. But like I say, we need to be able to assess this in a scientific manner, and we'll never be able to do that because we won't be able to have accurate comparisons. We can't do a scientific test on this.
I just wanted to pick up on what Corinne mentioned there about Alonso. It seems maybe not important to the leaders' race, but it is. Alonso is pushing to do a pit stop, and that could begin to bring this midfield, those around P10 and P11, in for a pit stop. That opens a nice window for Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, anyone who wants to make a go at undercutting Verstappen with that 5-second penalty. And Norris is proven that the hard tyre at this stage of the race is the better tyre to be on. So when that window starts to open, which should be in the next few laps, Is that going to push someone to try and...
Bernie is saying Norris has proven that it's at this stage that the hard compound tyre is the best one to be on. Now, I would suggest, Bernie, you're the strategist, Bernie, but I would suggest, see this little purple marker here next to Piastri? That one indicates that driver has set the fastest lap. Piastri's on the medium tyre. You're suggesting that Norris has gone the best tyre. Now, are you suggesting that Piastri set the fastest lap of the race so far, like on laps 1, 2 or 3 or so, early on in the race when the fuel load was at its heaviest? Or is it likely that that fastest lap of the race has been set recently as the fuel load is decreasing, and yet you're projecting that, the hard compound tyre is the best one to be on? I'm not seeing the fastest lap appear yet, Bernie. So who's giving us the Bernie bullshit?
Have a go at that Verstappen undercut with that 5-second penalty.
And don't discount Isaac Hadjar as well, also running the hard compound tyre, being ahead of Max Verstappen when Verstappen pits. If he was to do that now, he would be very much ahead of him.
Ooh, that's a big old ground strike with the skid blocks, isn't it? But yeah. So Verstappen then built a 1.8 second lead out there, obviously moving towards the pit stop phase and really doing what he needs to do out front. And there's the discarded rubber I was telling you about, which suggests a higher wear rate than we were perhaps expecting.
Yeah, and just the one line going through there.
Yeah, bit of a goat track through there, wasn't it?
It was a little bit. What we're seeing here is evidence that Verstappen has managed his tyres in the early stages, and as you say, Martin, now pushing that bit harder. So the pit stops normally follow 2 or 3 laps after that. Looking straight into the Red Bull garage, no one's really moving much currently. They're all sat down, the crew, waiting for the instructions. They are at Ferrari as they are at McLaren too. And here's the battle between Antonelli and Norris. 1 lap, it's coming.
Yeah. So they can't pit Verstappen or Piastri and Russell, etc., because they'll just drop back into a lot of traffic as Norris does his fastest lap of the race, also in the 1 minute 33s like Verstappen. So he's marching on really nicely on those tyres, is Lando. And of course the mediums at...
So he's just done his fastest lap of the race and it's still not faster than Piastri's, who's on a medium. And yet Bernie's just told us they're the best tyres to be on. That's not congruent. Something is amiss with what Bernie has just bullshitted us with.
The end on lower fuel with a more rubbered in racetrack, there'll be a better tyre than they were to start on anyway. So he's sitting pretty at the moment because he's got good track position, good pace, and 4 wheels on his wagon. He's managed to navigate those early laps and overtakes. So that's looking pretty good for him. Piastri doesn't really care who finishes second or third, I guess, so he'll just wait for Verstappen's pit stop. But it's about a 1.5 second undercut.
Did you just say Piastri doesn't care whether he finishes second or third?
Piastri doesn't really care who finishes second or third, I guess, so...
Who finishes second or third? Okay.
He'll just wait for Verstappen's pit stop. But it's about a 1.5 second undercut. You'll gain a 1.5 seconds by pitting a lap earlier than your rivals. And as soon as there's a gap, they'll be bringing Verstappen, Piastri in. Will McLaren try to destabilise Red Bull a little bit? Do they need to with Verstappen's 5-second penalty? Not really, do they?
No, they don't. But let's project it out there. Let's put it out there. Will they destabilise them all? That will get the kiddies excited.
George Russell, meanwhile, my tyres are toast. Well, unless he's got a nice pot of strawberry jam to spread over them, he's not going to get any more stickiness from those tonight. But if they pitted George Russell now...
Oh, one of the drivers is saying on team radio, my tyres are toast. Oh, that'll get the kiddies talking. Oh, George Russell's tyres are done. Oh, what are we going to see? All bullshit narrative. lap 17, lap 18 is when George Russell's talking about that. When does George pit?
With those toasty tyres, he's going to come out behind Isaac Hadger, so he's going to have to try and extend this stint just that little bit longer. On board with Norris, gaining on Kimi Antonelli. Fernando Alonso, we saw on your screen, catching up with Liam Lawson once again after being overtaken by Lawson. He is going to get DRS.
Car we're on board with will get DRS here.
And look at the closing speed that Lando Norris is getting, and Kimi Antonelli, I think, knows that his fight is not with Lando Norris on that particular straight, and doesn't really put up much of a fight. Norris.
That's not his race. Oh, Lewis wanted to fight him, but not Kimi. Young driver. Got a lot of potential though, by the looks of him. I'm not going to criticise Kimi yet. I think he seems like he's a good prospect. From what I've seen of him so far, comes across as a decent enough lad. So, but you probably need to. Well, hopefully as your career progresses, you'll challenge people in the appropriate way.
It's up now into the top 5.
I mean, you look at Norris and you think, could they actually do like 3/4 of the race, those tyres? They probably can, can't they?
Yeah.
You know, just keep going on and then give yourself a lovely tyre offset at the end. As long as you don't drop pace, they'll keep an eye on that.
Right.
They are putting pressure on Red Bull then. And Cohen Russell by pitting Piastri early. It's a question then of which gap, which traffic.
So whilst he was on the medium tyre, Piastri had set the fastest lap up until lap 19. That will obviously change as the fuel load comes down, and obviously now he's gone onto the hard compounder tyres. So you're going to see the fastest lap of the race switch to the likes of Piastri initially when he moves on to fresher hard compound tyres as the fuel load decreases. Will Norris reclaim it when he goes on to mediums? Well, I don't know at the moment.
He'll go back into
wait and see. It's only live once. Stay excited.
Piastri is just going through turn 19 at the moment, and nobody is moving in that McLaren garage. Karun Chandok, down to you.
Yeah, you're right, Coffee. Let's wait and see, because they've done the dummy box before, haven't they?
And they're getting ready, Karun, in the Red Bull garage.
Yes, Red Bull garage. There's a gap, Coffee. They're aiming for the gap between Carlos Sainz.
2 seconds, Karun.
Still pulling away from the cars behind Max. There's still traffic that we were pit into. Just keep going. This is a fantastic job.
Yeah, there's a 4-second gap. That's what they're aiming for between Sainz and Hamilton, and he's not quite there yet with a 5-second penalty. But Piastri's coming in. I can see him coming in the McLaren pits.
McLaren are ready for him. Red Bull came out and have gone back in again. So Verstappen carries on his merry way, doing that fabulous job that Jean-Pierre Lambiase told him. Piastri then stops.
Now, I don't think this is actually deemed a penalty, but I think it should be, because you've got these white lines for a reason. Now, do I need to come back a bit more? Let's just come back here.
And Hamilton, and he's not quite there yet with a 5-second penalty. But Piastri's coming in. I can see him coming in the McLaren pit.
Oh, is this Piastri? No.
McLaren are ready for him.
I think it was a Norris one that I want to pick up on when Norris pits. So yeah, I've done this far too early. We'll carry on it. Actually, Norris doesn't pit for at least 10 laps, does he? My mistake.
Red Bull came out and have gone back in again. So Verstappen carries on his merry way, doing that fabulous job that Jean-Pierre Lambiase told him. Piastri then stops for his pit stop. That was a bit slow. 3.4 seconds. So he's lost about 1.2 seconds.
Red Bull have to tell everybody, yeah, you're doing a fantastic job, Max. Max, you're fantastic. And Sky Sports have to affirm, yeah, Max doing that fantastic job. Fantastic, Max. Affirm that.
They're in the pit stop.
I think they wanted to cover off George Russell as much as anything with Verstappen's 5-second penalty, and you might as well get on those tyres and use them up. It's just a question of where Piastri feeds out into the pack, isn't it?
Antonelli pits as well, and Fernando Alonso comes into the pits, and Piastri's come out behind Hamilton and ahead of Sainz, so he's down in 6th place.
Yeah, and he'll be past Hamilton in a flash on those tyres, and up to behind his teammate Lando Norris, who I don't think will be giving him too much of a problem. So that's actually worked out well for McLaren and enabled them to basically make sure they stay ahead of Russell, Antonelli and co.
And of course McLaren have a brilliant array of data from those hard compound tyres that Lando Norris has been running in this race so far. Max Verstappen has been told to push and push hard by...
What's that brilliant array of data then, Crofty? Because that brilliant array of data is collected from a car that began with 100 kilograms of fuel and now is down to, what, we're 20 laps in, we're at 2/5 of the race distance. So if that is, the fuel load is not going to be used up in a uniform manner. When the car's heavy, it consumes a greater amount of fuel because it's having to lug a higher load, you would think. So is it a uniform consumption of fuel? I would suggest not. But what you got is the data, the array of data for a car that has got 100 kilograms of fuel down to what? If you're saying 2/5, which is probably not exactly how it is, 100 kilograms down to 60 kilograms. That's the array of data that you've got that the car is counting. Now we're going on to the hards where we're going from 60 kilograms down to 0. So that array of data that you've got doesn't apply to this, does it, Crofty? So you're bullshitting the kiddies, aren't you, Crofty? You're not informing them that the data that you're trying to claim that McLaren have got, well, it's of no fucking use. Anyway, we'll carry on.
His race engineer, and they're drifting out into the pit lane, waiting to service him and give him some new tyres. And this is what happened to Oscar Piastri. Just a little bit slow all around there, and they'll be a bit unhappy. So Verstappen has got a 5-second penalty. He's
right. That's the end of lap 20. It's just clicked over onto lap 21. So for the next part, we'll do laps 21 through to 30. So hopefully you've seen more Max Verstappen fluffing by the media, and this time we've got the vilification of Lewis Hamilton. That was a bit naughty of Lewis. There's a special place for people like that. Special place. Anyway, thank you for your time. I hope these videos are helping some of you realise the amount that we're lied to, the amount of narrative that we are fed as people, that we have innocently invested our time and emotion and money into following something that we're being sold as being a sport, and yet the way that we are being informed about it is an abuse. There's so much lies, so much narrative, so much bullshit that's not congruent with the truth. If it wasn't bullshit, I couldn't make these videos. I couldn't pick fault with it if it was accurate and if it was right. But I can pick fault with it and expose that what is being said isn't a reflection of what's really going on. It's not really the truth, is it? Why does that dynamic exist? Why am I able to expose what we're hearing as not being authentic, not actually being a reflection of what's really going on? Well, that's because we're being fed bullshit. That's what it is. Sad, but that's what it is. That's what this show is all about. It's a shit show. Thank you for your time.